I call the Marlington Local School District Board of Education regular meeting to order on July 9th at 7:00 p.m. Mr. Knoll, would you lead us in the invocation?
Sure will. You bow your heads, please. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for another beautiful day, Lord, a day created by you. I'm reminded tonight from my good friend and mentor, Pastor Ed, Lord, of the words of Paul in Philippians. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. I love this verse because Paul used it as a closing challenge in a way that he wanted to be remembered. And Father, I ask this tonight, Lord, that you would help us to live lives that are worth remembering as well. Be with us in word and in deed tonight, Father. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag
Of the United States of America,
for which it
stands under God,
indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
Mrs. Humphries, would you read the mission statement for us?
In collaboration with staff, community, parents, and students, the Marlington Local School District will develop lifelong learners who understand and apply knowledge and demonstrate excellence in pursuing the highest standards with effective intervention to challenge every student.
Thank you. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Mrs. Brugger, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gabrick,
Here.
Mr. Hagan,
Here.
Mrs. Humphries,
Here.
Dr. Mason, Mrs. Stevens.
here.
Adoption of the meeting agenda. Are there any additions or corrections? I'll note that there was one adjustment to the June 24th meeting minutes, and it's been corrected to show that Dr. Mason was absent for that meeting. That set of minutes is placed in the treasurer's folder, so the corrected copy of the minutes that we'll be voting on is the one that's placed in the treasurer's folder. Any other additions or corrections? Is there a motion for the Marlington Local Board of Education to adopt the following agenda for the July 9th, 2020 meeting as corrected?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 4-0.
Public participation. Persons wishing to present information or items to the board shall submit a written statement along with their names and directory information in Word format to the treasurer on or before 3 p.m. on Friday prior to the regular meeting of the board. The treasurer shall then submit timely written statements to each board member before the next regular meeting of the board. At the next regular meeting, the treasurer shall identify the name of each person who submitted a written statement, and such written statement shall be entered into the minutes but not read aloud at the regular board meeting. There shall be no public participation at special board meetings. Mrs. Berger, was anything submitted for public participation?
No.
Thank you. Is there any old business? New business, reopening of the schools discussion by Mr. Knoll and Dr. Schruffler.
Yeah, good evening. Doc and I just wanted to spend a little bit of time kind of going over some information that we received here last week or so. I talked to you back on June 25th and said that the governor was going to roll out some more guidelines, and that did occur. So just kind of wanted to highlight those as we go through here for a few minutes. So first of all, some things that we know. We still have the CDC guidelines in place. However, the president did make an announcement last night that he thought those needed to be changed, that maybe they were too tough as we're looking at opening up schools. I did hear the CDC director say today that maybe there wasn't going to be any changes, but possibly just some additional guidance documents on what the reopening would look like. The governor did roll out his risk level guidelines. I told you what I thought the 4 colors might be, and I was a little off. So we'll talk about that here real quick. Level 1 is yellow. Level 2 is orange. Level 3 is red. Level 4 is purple. That was the one color I hadn't planned on. But basically, those are risk levels for how the COVID sickness is affecting everybody by county. And as of tonight, if this hasn't changed, Stark County, I believe, is still orange, which is at level 2. And I heard a little bit ago that Summit and Lorain counties are at level 3, which is red. Now, how is that going to affect schools? I think that is definitely going to affect schools as well as those levels move up. And if and when we go higher, it's going to have an effect on how we're doing business. The COVID-19 health and preventative guidance for K-12 schools was rolled out by the governor. There are 5 basic items in there that I just want to chat with you real quick about. The first one that's being talked about is assessing for symptoms. The key bullet point being students and staff should conduct daily health checks prior to going to school. So as I read that, that means parents, we're going to need you. All right, we're going to need your help before your kids walk out of your home. Looking at temperature and looking at symptoms as well. Schools do have the ability to do that in their buildings. I'm not sure what the decision will be here, but that's a conversation that the board's going to have. Number 2 big item, we talked about this a lot, is just sanitizing and hand washing 20 seconds when hands are dirty, before and after eating, and after using the restroom. Schools must provide hand sanitizer in what is called high traffic areas, which would be like when you have a bunch of kids coming in off the bus or drop off, those entrances areas, and also classrooms. Okay, we are going to be responsible to provide hand sanitizer. Number 3 talks about cleaning shared surfaces, spaces. It's going to be a job for us as custodians, teachers, staff members. Really paying close attention to high touch areas, and if things are being shared as materials, really going to have to make sure, first of all, that that is minimized, doesn't happen. If we can, not have that occur. But if things are shared, they do need to be sanitized between each user. Things I think about are like technology, library books, those types of things. The other big one is social distancing. The language says school staff should try, when possible, to maintain 6 feet of social distancing among student staff. That includes classrooms, hallways, restrooms, cafeteria, pickup areas, the bus, which is another good conversation to have. And then it says where social distancing is difficult, face coverings are even more essential. And we'll talk about that in a minute. We're asked to limit visitors, even consider eliminating field trips. And in my personal opinion, I think both of those need to occur just for the safety and well-being of our staff and students. And then number 5 is probably the one that's going to get the most attention. It talks about face covering policy. Here's the mandate. All school staff must wear face coverings. Okay, that is the mandate. Unless there is some type of medical issue or reason why you can't do that. So that's item number 1. Item number 2 is school boards must establish a face mask policy. So I'd like to have maybe just a brief conversation about what that might look like tonight. Obviously, don't have to make any decisions, but just to give us a little bit of direction on moving forward. In the document, the term is strongly recommended that students in 3rd grade and above wear some type of face covering, once again, unless they're unable to because of some type of health reason or developmental reason. So, and then the final one being strongly recommended again to wear them on school buses. Okay. So, to me, I've always said, we have a lot of experience. Dr. Mike's got a lot of experience. I have a lot of experience in education, but one thing I don't do is I don't know about the medical piece. We need to rely on our local health department to help us with that. In Stark County, you've got a couple great people that we talk to every week that's very good at that. So here's what I'm hearing the science say. Here's the way to control the spread. Face coverings, number 1, social distancing, number 2, and the personal hygiene, hand washing being number 3. Those are the big 3 that we keep hearing about to help mitigate and lessen the spread. Page 11 of the restart guidelines says this: if schools cannot meet those guidelines for reopening that we just talked about, they should continue with remote learning. Okay. So that's out there. So if we can't get to that point, then we have to go back to how we ended the school year. So obviously, our hope is to work with the union, to work with our administrative team. We've already had a lot of good conversations here at the district. Dr. Mike's joined us in them. The other piece of the puzzle, and I sent you a real quick little survey the other day. I think it's important to get some parent information, some survey data. Our administrative team concurred with that assessment. I think there's a lot of merit to that. It's not a real long or in-depth thing, but just a couple points. Maybe a question about, what do you think about the coming back to school, all in, everybody coming with some preventative measures? Do you want to just have remote learning at home? Do you want to do a blended type of model? Put that question out there. If school buildings are open like we want them to be, would you send your kids to school, or would you maybe want to use the Duke's Digital Academy? I think that's a good question. And I think you want to know about face coverings and see where our community is on that. Should all students be required to wear them, or do you take the highly recommended part from the guides document where 3rd grade and above? Or do you just wear a mask maybe in certain situations where there's a lot of traffic, those types of things? One thing I know Mrs. Sickles would be interested in is, can you drive your kid to school to help us with the issues on the bus? We would never want to say that any other year. You always want kids riding the bus, but for this year, would you be able, Mom, Paul, to drive your son or daughter to school to help us? And then kind of an open-ended question, maybe just, what concerns do you have, thoughts, that type of thing. So that's just a real quick kind of summary of the information we've received over the last week or so. Be interested to hear any comments that the board might have on thoughts moving forward on any of those issues that I kind of threw out there real quick.
I think it's a tough thing no matter what. As I think about it, and not having a child in the school now, I like the idea of the, some of the kids on some days coming in, the staggered, because that would give more freedom to the kids inside the school at the time they're there, and then do the other part remote, like kind of a combo. Keep everybody flexible. That's my personal opinion and thoughts.
Appreciate that.
Do you anticipate that everyone is coming back? Is that the goal at this point, that everyone will be in school in person using these guidelines, or are you leaning more toward what Karen's suggestion is, that you're going to stagger?
Well, those have been some conversations that we just initially had. Doc's going to have to make that final call, but I think it's important to get input from all of our stakeholders to see where our community stands. As we have talked, Ms. Gabrick, I think number one, and we've said this for 8 years, the safety and well-being of our staff and students is our number one priority, and that needs to be the focus. Now, along with that, how can we get as many kids as we can in to continue with teaching and learning? Like, I think our K-5 population and special needs population have to be in front of teachers as much as we can. I think our older learners, like our high schoolers, for example, I think they're a little more mature. I think they could handle a little more of the remote. And what worries me is they're the ones that are going to be out and about the most in the community, and going to other people's houses and going to football practices and soccer practices, and bringing them in every day kind of concerns me a little bit. But that's where you're going to have to find a happy middle there. And I would say this: it's not about opening school; it's keeping schools open. And I think that needs to be the focus as well. But it's going to be interesting to see what districts do around us as well with that type of philosophy. But I hope that answered your question. Safety and security.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that we can fully answer it today. I was just wondering what you were thinking. I mean, Dr. Mike, do you have any additional input or a few words you'd like to say on the matter?
Just a little bit. Joe, you did a great job with that. Joe and I spent the better part of the day with the other county superintendents, the health departments, Stark County, Canton, Alliance. They were there for a good bit, 2.5 hours of the meeting. I think everybody wants our kids to be back in school because that's healthy as well. We want our kids to be socializing to the most they can, learning as best they can. We all hope for that. The problem is the health department was telling us the statistics are changing so rapidly. Right now we're in orange. We might be a red the next couple of days. We might not. So we just have to keep talking. I think the greatest thing is we're not working in isolation. We're listening to other educators. We're listening to the health department. They even were talking about, they've done research. What are other states doing? And they had some really good ideas. So we just have to keep everybody posted by communicating, and we'll keep talking about it. We are working, the superintendents are working almost constantly on this issue. We have another little group meeting Monday to talk about some language that we can send home to our parents. So that's in the works as well.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Joe, with the difference between the grade school and the middle school and high schoolers as far as the blended learning goes, or the possibility of that. Being as the younger kids, it'll make it for a difficult situation for their parents or guardians to be home and working in two-person in households where both parents work.
Right.
Make it difficult, and I think that we'd run into the situation where they'd be forced to have possibly grandparents watching the kids, and that would put them at an even higher risk too.
Yeah.
That's definitely something to consider.
I agree. I also just think too, with Joe touched on it really well about, our younger kids definitely, I do think, learn a little bit better in front of, teachers as well. And just, that's something that they're not going to get back when you're looking at that, where I feel high schoolers are, they're more independent. They're able to maybe send an email on their own and, navigate a lot better. And with most parents being in a 2-household income as well, I mean, that puts a burden on our parents, and we don't want our younger kids going with the grandparents and then maybe increasing that risk as well. I agree.
Yeah. I can speak from experience that, being in front of the teacher in the classroom makes a huge impact for K through 5 students specifically. My son struggled a little bit to, get on the ball. He was at home, so he thought it was home rules, and it took him a while to adjust.
I know, I hear that. And I will tell our community this, the way we ended remote learning, when it happens again, it will not look the same. Okay. And I think the expectations are that it's not going to look the same either. So to me, it's not if we go to remote learning, it's going to be when. So the first plan is going to be, what does remote learning look like when it comes? And that's what Doc and the administrative team is going to be outlining and getting prepared for you.
Joe, when do you project having the survey results and sharing that information, and how you're going to share it?
Right. If the board's okay, I'd like to, maybe give Doc and I maybe like tomorrow to kind of clean that thing up a little bit, and then maybe get it out first thing on Monday. Maybe give everybody a week, and I hope our community would really give us some thoughts on this one. This is a survey where we really want to hear from you. I would hope maybe a week to give our community time to respond. We'll put it on our website. I can put it on some social media, unless you think maybe a little bit longer. But I'd like to, a week to 10 days, be able to have something in front of you where that can, start helping with the decision making as well.
And you'll have that available both on social media and remotely, versus parents can do it the paper version as well, or is it just going to be an electronic one?
I was thinking just electronic.
Just
I mean,
electronic.
we could leave some paper copies here at admin if people wanted to come in and pick one up. That's not a problem either. Yeah, we could do that.
Okay.
But that's all I had. I don't know, Mike, if you had anything else, but we just want to toss a little something too tonight, just to give you a little update.
Yep, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more questions or discussion on that? Under the cooperative bus purchasing, Mr. Knoll, do you want to present that?
Sure can. I'd like to recommend a motion to approve a resolution of intent to petition Stark County Schools Council of Government Cooperative Advertising and receiving of bids for integrated school bus units.
Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just to be clear, that this just kind of gets us in the hopper. We talk about this every year. It doesn't mean that we're going to buy any more buses. And to be honest with you, we had a pretty hefty purchase last year. So I would hope that we wouldn't need one. But if there was some type of situation where like one of our handicap buses became unable to be used and we needed to buy it, at least you're in the hopper to get that competitive bid bus purchase through the co-op there.
So the plan is at this point that we will not be purchasing. This is just going to give us the opportunity to purchase if there would be an emergency or something of that nature.
That would be my recommendation, Chris.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes?
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries.
Yeah.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 4-0.
Under the treasurer's agenda, is there a motion to approve the minutes for the meetings, the following meetings, which is the emergency meeting, June 24th, 2020? That one is as corrected, and the corrected copy is placed in the treasurer's folder. The regular meeting, June 25th, emergency meeting, June 26th, and regular meeting, July 2nd.
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes?
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 4-0.
Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's financial reports and overview of receipts and expenditures for the period ending June 30th, 2020 as presented and marked Exhibit FFF and Exhibit GGG?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Oh,
I'll
sorry.
just briefly go over this. You have the FinSum report, which is the summary of all fund activity, which ties to the cash reconciliation. It starts at 8.7 million cash balance. You add in the investments, which gets us to 9.7 million, and you have the reconciling items, which bring us to 0. And then the check pay report, which is a summary of all checks written for the month. Most notable is the PlugSmart. We've paid first portion of the PlugSmart contract.
On that check pay report, I didn't see where Attorney Markling was paid. Have we received his bill, his statement?
We've received his first set of invoicing, and I'm in the process of reviewing the expenditure or the charges on there, and I have some questions about them. And so once I get some answers on the charges, then we'll continue with the process of paying.
What was the total amount?
I'm sorry, what you cut out? What was that?
What was the amount of the
Oh,
statement?
the total amount was, hang on one second. Total amount owed is $29,285.50.
And the pay period was March 5th was, I think, when he was hired. What did that go through?
The final. You can find the final charge. Final charge on here is June 12th.
Okay. I think we said the hourly rate is a blended rate of $285. I think I remember that.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I just, so if you divide that out, that's almost $30,000 divided by 3 months time. That's an average of about $10,000 a month. That's a lot of money. I just want to state again, I think that's a wrong place to put our money, especially when we need to save money. So I want to make that clear that that's how I feel. And I also want us to ask him to bill monthly. I think that that is a normal period of time that we should be billed for. Can we please, I don't know how that is done. I don't know if Katie conveys that or if we're just saying that, but I think that's appropriate.
On that, Karen, I think I think that was explained to you that he was away during when the COVID took place and everything shut down. He left and was not in his office, so he didn't have access to his billing, and that's why he didn't get one for several months. I think his routine billing is monthly. It's just with COVID, I don't think anything is normal this year, and I think we just have to be flexible with the way vendors bill. I mean, we don't have any control over when they're going to send us a bill, but I think normally you should expect a bill monthly.
I think by law, 7 years.
Pardon?
I think by law, you have 7 years to send a bill.
Okay. Well, yeah, we can't do that, obviously.
Katie and I will reach out to Attorney Markley and just confirm, just to make sure we're on the same page. That's not a problem.
Thank you very much.
And I think on the flip side, I think his services have been very valuable. He has helped us on many legal issues that have surfaced and has given us good, solid advice and guidance. And I think he's done a good job for the district. Katie, on the you have everything finished for the fiscal year at this point, is that correct?
Yes.
And are we aligned with the 5-year forecast where it was projected for the fiscal year end June 30th, 2020, or how did we align with that?
We are very closely aligned with it with very small anomalies, which are bound to happen. The difference in expenditures were under 196,000, and a part of that was attributed to the E-rate. Remember the E-rate that was approved? The $100,000 E-rate wasn't expended in that fiscal year because the project wasn't complete. And we also didn't expend near the amount of supplies that was projected because of COVID-19. So, I mean, there are.
So the expenses ended up 196,000 lower than the forecast. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Overall, yes.
And revenue came out.
And that's actually, it's not that the expenses aren't going to happen. The $100,000 in E-rate is actually going to just happen, it's a timing issue. So you could actually say that $96,000. The expenditures were short by $96,000 because it's just a timing issue. Because E-rate expense will happen, and that's about 0.3% of a deviation.
And the revenue came out the same as projected?
The revenue was very close as well. It was, hang on a minute, 0.3% as well of a deviation. So,
And was it up or down?
hold on, let me go. I didn't put the number. I just had the 0.3%. It was up 24, 9927 minus 2410. $80,000, 0.3%.
Any other questions on the financial resolution? Katie, was there anything else with the checks or the funds that will need adjustments or explanation or anything for the end of the year?
The only comment I would make going forward is that your purchase services landed at $4.5 million, which I'm still concerned about how they're going to be 3.9 this year, which is what you had me change it to. So that's something that I think the board should consider going forward into this year and going forward. That would be my only concern.
Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabriel,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan, Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0. 4-0. Sorry.
Yep, one.
Is there a motion to approve the following donations for June 2020? The Alliance Lions Club donation to Marlington High School Academic Recognition Committee, $100. Lee and Carolyn Gabrick donation to Marlington High School FFA program for a student FFA jacket, $40. Jeff and Lisa Manos donation to Marlington High School Student Council for a scholarship, $200.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabriel,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries, Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 4-0.
Is there a motion to approve the membership for Dr. Mike Schreffler in District Administration / National Superintendent Association in the amount of $3,187.50, which includes a complimentary membership for Carol Sutton, Assistant Superintendent?
So
Second.
Is there any discussion? Dr. Schreffler, would you mind just giving a brief overview of the membership and the benefits of that?
Sure. Thank you. About 4 years ago, I joined this organization. It's one of two of the biggest national superintendent organizations. This one focuses more on individualized services rather than a huge conference and a huge gathering. They have all sorts of resources that I've used. People that give you advice from different parts of the nation. It's been an incredibly great networking tool. They offer, one of their big pushes right now is technology. So they help us to get updated in what are the trends in technology and how do they feel our students will need technology in the future and what should we be doing now. It's just been a wealth of information. You can pick up the phone and I mean, sometimes you have to say, let's talk tomorrow or whatever, but you can talk to a person that's been a superintendent or a business manager. One of the other nice things, you have to be a superintendent to belong to the superintendent part, but you could be a district like us with 2,500 kids or a district like Los Angeles with just, I don't know, maybe millions of kids. So, and anything in between. I've made some great connections. I think it's well worth it. I think the membership for the assistant superintendent of curriculum is new. They do offer a 2-day conference for both their individual. One would be for Mrs. Sutton. They're intense. They're an intense 2-day, but they pay for everything out of your membership. You wouldn't even have to pay if we would choose for me to go for the travel. So I think it's well worth it, and I thought I'd ask you to consider it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 4-0.
Personnel consent agenda. Mr. Knoll, would you make your recommendations?
Sure. It is with a heavy and sad heart that I recommend a motion to accept the resignation of Catherine E. Berger as district treasurer effective the end of the day of July 31st, 2020. Recommend motion to hire the following the 1-year limited contract beginning with the 2021 school year pending verification of satisfactory credentials, visa, and FBI checks as required. Eric Kendall as presented. Number 2, recommend motion to hire the following title tutors for the 2020-21 school year pending verification of satisfactory credentials, visa, and FBI checks as required. Those individuals as presented.
Is there a motion to accept the superintendent's personnel recommendations?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I too would like to say, Katie, I think you did a really great job, and I'm sorry that this ended this. I think you could have been here for a long time, and I just feel really bad that it ended like this. I'm glad you landed on your feet, and I think you'll do great, and for that, I'm really glad. I did want to talk about the computer information position too. I had sent an email to Dr. Mike just saying, because of the financial situation we were finding ourselves in, I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing with replacing people when these positions are open because we had staff leave. So we wouldn't be cutting anyone to not replace them. So that's my one concern. I know I had some conversations with Carol and she feels good about it. I know that Dr. Mike feels good about it. And I know the value of it, but I'm concerned with the financial trajectory that we're on. So I just wanted to have a little discussion about that if we could. And I know that we're not quite sure on that other position, the business position. Didn't know if we could kind of split it down the middle, if we take this computer information job and go ahead and staff that, because I think that could be valuable otherwise, not just in the teaching position, could be helpful to the district, but possibly hold off on that business position. So those were just my thoughts.
I think he makes some really good value, like Karen Bell, and the same, from utilizing going to Marlington. Business was a huge class for me and definitely got my start in the financial world as well. So, I mean, I would like to see both positions if we can. Like you said, I mean, we're not cutting any positions, and I just feel, I mean, we've got to offer something to our career kids as well, and we have to still make our classes marketable for our kids. I think if we can utilize both positions, that'd be a great benefit to our district.
And based on the email that we received from Dr. Mike that explained his position and why he felt we needed both positions, I would support his recommendation on that, because we want to keep as many students at Marlington as we can. With the career tech, we are bringing in extra funds. So it'd be my opinion, we follow the recommendation of the superintendent on this.
Agreed.
And I do want to take a moment to thank Katie for her services. We appreciate everything you've done.
And I would like to say that nobody works with the superintendent more than the treasurer does. And I have enjoyed the experience working with her. She's a beautiful woman inside and out. I've seen her work as many hours as I work, to be honest with you. There were a lot of nights where we were both
More. I'm just. I'm just.
we're walking out together, and I say, "Hey, can I walk you to your car?" But I mean, her dedication and work ethic was second to none, and that will serve you well, young lady, at your next position.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you for everything you've done here for Marlington and our staff, our community, our students, and it's been a pleasure working with you.
Same here.
Is there further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphrey,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 4-0.
Are there any announcements?
Ms. Gabrick,
Oh, go ahead.
all right, go ahead, bud.
If I could, I just wanted to let you all know we are collecting applicants for the treasurer position, and we are forwarding those to you. I apologize. I think you got the mix of some from before, but I'll get you a more firm list in the next couple of days as applicants come in. And then we can, at your discretion, we can set up however you want to do interviews, or who we want to interview, who you want to interview, and kind of take it from there.
Well, I just wanted to take this opportunity, since this is going to be our last scheduled regular meeting that I see before my departure on July 31st, just to share a few words. It's been a true blessing to serve as your superintendent here in Marlington over the last 8 years. I've used the phrase amazed, but never surprised. And that just goes to show what the past few years have looked like, using the term positively Marlington, just to express my appreciation for all the great acts of kindness displayed by our staff, our students, our parents, community members. The support's been overwhelming, and we have truly been stronger together, especially this year. I was able to live out a professional, personal dream to return to my alma mater, to give back, to pay it forward, to answer the call to serve. I am proud of our collective positive improvements in teaching and learning, technology, STEM education, mental health and wellness, upgrades to the middle school, high school science labs, the high school AC and window project, all the safety and security upgrades across the district, and our many athletic improvements as well. I sincerely appreciate the hard and thoughtful work of all of our staff members over these years. Each of you have played an integral part in our success, and we have demonstrated by our actions that every do truly counts, and no words can fully express my gratitude. My goal was to leave Marlington Local School District better than I found it. With all of your help, dedication, support along the way, my conclusion is this, from my favorite Sylvester Stallone quote of all time: mission accomplished. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. You've done such an incredible job. I've witnessed it firsthand, and I just, you're going to truly be missed. Big shoes to fill.
Thank you.
And again, Joe, we want to thank you for your services over the years.
Thank you.
Any other announcements?
I know I said I had no more birthdays in my family, but today's my parents' anniversary. So I just wanted to wish them a happy anniversary. 43 years.
Happy anniversary to them. The next regular meeting is August 6, 2020 at 7 p.m. by electronic remote technology. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 4-0.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, good night. We'll see you, bye.
Thank you.